everyone. So we were talking about the cell physiology, and in that topic, we have to understand this, and this is transport through the cell membrane. So we'll talk about this topic today. As we know that all the cells in the body must be supplied with essential substances like nutrients, water, electrolytes, etc. Cells also must get rid of many unwanted substances like waste materials, carbon dioxide, etc. The cells achieve this by means of transport mechanisms across the cell membrane. Structure of the cell membrane is well suited for the transport of substances in and out of the cell. Lipids and proteins of cell membrane play an important role in the transport of various substances between the extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. So for that we'll understand the basic mechanism of transport. So there are two types of basic mechanisms which are involved in the transport of substances across the cell membrane. First is a passive transport mechanism and the second is active transport mechanism. First we'll talk about the passive transport. So passive transport is the transport of substances along the concentration gradient or electrical gradient or both. We have talked about the concentration gradient and electrical gradient in our further lecture. So it is also known as a diffusion or downhill movement. It does not need energy. Passive transport is like swimming in the direction of water flow in a river. So here the substances move from the region of higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration. We have talked about this in the matter of diffusion. So we'll see the types of diffusion here. So there are mainly two types, simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Simple diffusion of substances occurs either through the lipid layer or protein layer of the cell membrane. Facilitated diffusion occurs with the help of the carrier proteins of the cell membrane. This is how the diffusion can be discussed under three headings. So now the diffusion would be of three types: simple diffusion through the lipid layer, simple diffusion through the protein layer, and facilitated or carrier mediated diffusion. So we'll talk about this every type. First we'll talk about the simple diffusion through the lipid layer. So lipid layer of the cell membrane is permeable only to the lipid soluble substances which are oxygen, carbon dioxide and alcohol. The diffusion through the lipid layer is directly proportional to the solubility of the substances in the lipids. Simple diffusion through the protein layer. Protein layer of the cell membrane is permeable to water soluble substances, mainly electrolyte diffuse through the protein layer. Protein channels or ion channels. So throughout the central lipid layer of the cell membrane, there are some pores. Integral protein molecules of protein layer invaginate into these pores from either surface of the cell membrane, and thus the pores present in the central lipid layer are entirely lined up by the integral protein molecules. These pores are the hypothetical pores, matlab they are not real, but we have to imagine that these are the pores here, and form the channels for the diffusion of water, electrolytes and other substances which cannot pass through the lipid layer as the channels are lined up by protein molecules. These are called the protein channels for water soluble substances. Types of protein channels or ion channels. Characteristic feature of the protein channel is the selective permeability. That is, each channel can permit only one type of ion to pass through it. Accordingly, the channels are named after the ions which diffuse through this channel, such as sodium channel, potassium channels, etc. Regulation of the channels. Some of the protein channels are continuously open and most of the channels are always closed. Continuously open channels are called the ungated channels and closed channels are called the gated channels. These channels are open only when it is required. So we'll talk about the gated channels first. Gated channels are divided into three categories. First is a voltage gated channel, second is a ligand gated channels, and third is a mechanically gated channels. Voltage gated channels. So voltage gated channels are the channels which open whenever there is a change in the electrical potential. For example, in the neuromuscular junction, when action potential reaches axon terminal, the calcium channels are open and calcium ions diffuse into the interior of the axon terminal from the ECF. Similarly, in the muscle during the excitation and contraction coupling, the action potential spread through the transverse tubules of the sarcotubular system. When the action potential reaches the cisternae, large number of calcium ions diffuse from the cisternae into the sarcoplasm. Ligand gated channels. Ligand gated channels are the type of channels which opens in the presence of some hormonal substances. The hormonal substances are called ligands and the channels are called the ligand gated channels. During the transmission of the impulse through the neuromuscular junction, acetylcholine is released from the vesicles. The acetylcholine moves through the presynaptic membrane, the membrane of the axon terminal, and reaches the synaptic cleft. Then the acetylcholine molecules cause opening of sodium channels in the postsynaptic membrane and sodium ions diffuse into the neuromuscular junction from ECF. Third type of channels is the mechanically gated channels. So mechanically gated channels are the channels which are opened by some mechanical factors. For examples, channels present in the pressure receptors, which is Pachynin corpuscles, and the receptor cells, which are the hair cells of organ of Corti, and vestibular apparatus. When a Pachynin corpuscle is subjected to pressure, it is compressed, resulting in deformation of its core fiber. This deformation causes opening of sodium channel and the development of the receptor potential. Sound wave cause the movement of cilia of hair cells in organ of Corti, which is a receptor organ in the ear. Movements of the cilia cause opening of the potassium channels, leading to the development of receptor potential. Similar mechanism prevails in hair cells of the vestibular apparatus also. The next type of diffusion is facilitated or carrier mediated diffusion. Facilitated or carrier mediated diffusion is the type of diffusion by which the water soluble substances having larger molecules are transported through the cell membrane with the help of a carrier protein. By this process, the substances are transported across the cell membrane faster than the transport by the simple diffusion. Glucose and amino acids are transported by the facilitated diffusion. Glucose or amino acid molecules cannot diffuse through the channels because the diameter of these molecules is larger than the diameter of the channels. Molecule of these substances binds with carrier protein. Now some conformational change occurs in the carrier protein, and due to this change the molecule reaches the other side of the cell membrane. So now we'll see the factors which are affecting the rate of diffusion. Rate of diffusion of substances through the cell membrane is affected by the following factors. First is permeability of the cell membrane. So rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the permeability of the cell membrane. Since the cell membrane is selectively permeable, only limited number of substances can diffuse through the membrane. Second is temperature. So rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the body temperature. Increase in temperature increases the rate of diffusion. This is because of the thermal motion of the molecules during the increased temperature. Third is concentration gradient or electrical gradient of the substance across the cell membrane. So rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the concentration gradient or electrical gradient of the diffusing substances across the cell membrane. However, facilitated diffusion has some limitation beyond certain level of concentration gradient. Fourth is the solubility of the substance. Diffusion rate is directly proportional to the solubility of the substances, particularly the lipid soluble substances. Since oxygen is highly soluble in lipids, it diffuses very rapidly through the lipid layer. Then there is a factor which is thickness of the cell membrane. So rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the thickness of the cell membrane. So if the cell membrane is thick, diffusion of the substances is very slow. Then size of the molecules. Rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the size of the molecules. Thus, the substances with smaller molecules diffuse rapidly than the substances with the larger molecules. Size of the ions. Sorry, that is a spelling mistake here. I have written lines, but it's ions. So generally, rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the size of the ions. Smaller ions can pass through the membrane more easily than the larger ions with the same charge. However, it is not applicable always. For instance, sodium ions are smaller in size than potassium ions. Still, sodium ions cannot pass through the membrane as easily as the potassium ions because sodium ions have got the tendency to gather water molecules around them. So this makes it difficult for sodium ions to diffuse through the membrane. Then there is a factor which is charge of the ions. Rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the charge of the ions. Greater the charge of the ions, lesser the rate of the diffusion. For example, diffusion of calcium ion is slower than the sodium ions. Now there are different terms and which are called the spatial types of passive transport. In addition to diffusion, there are some spatial types of passive transport which are bulk flow, filtration and osmosis. First we'll see what bulk flow is. So bulk flow is diffusion of large quantity of substances from a region of high pressure to the region of low pressure. It is due to the pressure gradient of the substance across the cell membrane. So you have to understand this. You have to remember this definition, what bulk flow is. So bulk flow is the diffusion of large quantity of substances from the region of high pressure to the region of low pressure. So it is due to the pressure gradient of the substances across the cell membrane. Best example for bulk flow is the exchange of gases across the respiratory membrane in lungs. Partial pressure of the oxygen is greater in the alveolar air than in the alveolar capillary blood. So oxygen moves from alveolar air into the blood through the respiratory membrane. Partial pressure of the carbon dioxide is more in blood than in the alveoli. So it moves from the blood into the alveoli through the respiratory membrane. Then there is a filtration. Movement of water and solutes from an area of high hydrostatic pressure to an area of a low hydrostatic pressure is called the filtration. Hydrostatic pressure is developed by the weight of the fluid. Filtration process is seen at arterial end of the capillaries, where movement of fluid occurs along with dissolved substances from blood into the interstitial fluid. It is also occur in glomeruli of kidney. Osmosis. So osmosis is a specific or spatial type of diffusion. It is defined as the movement of water or any other solvent from an area of low concentration to an area of the high concentration of a solute through a semi-permeable membrane. The semi-permeable membrane permits the passage of only water or other solvents but not the solutes. So you have to remember there are two different uh, things in the definition of osmosis, that movement of water or any other solvents from an area of a low concentration to an area of a high concentration of a solute, and it happens through a semi-permeable membrane. So when we are talking about the diffusion, the definition was totally opposite, right? We were talking about moving the substances from high concentration to low concentration, right? But here in osmosis, the movement occurs from the lower concentration to the higher concentration, and the semi-permeable membrane should be there. So osmosis can occur whenever there is a difference in the solute concentration on either side of the membrane. Osmosis depends upon the osmotic pressure also. What is osmotic pressure? Osmotic pressure is the pressure created by the solutes in the fluid during osmosis when water or any other solvent moves from the area of lower concentration to the area of higher concentration. The solutes in the area of higher concentration get dissolved in the solvent. This creates a pressure which is known as osmotic pressure. So normally the osmotic pressure prevents further movement of water or other solvent during the osmosis. Then there is a term called reverse osmotic pressure. So reverse osmosis is a process in which water or other solvent flows in reverse direction from the area of higher concentration to the area of lower concentration of the solute, if an external pressure is applied on the area of high concentration. Then there is another term which is colloidal osmotic pressure and oncotic pressure. So the osmotic pressure exerted by the colloidal substances in the body is called the colloidal osmotic pressure. And the osmotic pressure exerted by the colloidal substances of the plasma is known as oncotic pressure, and it is about 25 millimeter Hg. Types of osmosis. So osmosis occurs in the cell membrane is of two types. First is endoosmosis, movement of water into the cell, and exosmosis, which is movement of water out of the cell. Then there is an active transport. So active transport is a movement of substances against a chemical or electrical or electrochemical gradient. It is like swimming against the water tide in a river. It is also called the uphill transport. Active transport requires energy, which is obtained mainly by the breakdown of the high energy compounds like ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So what can be the difference between active transport and facilitated diffusion? So active transport mechanism is different from facilitated diffusion by two ways. First, carrier protein of active transport needs energy, whereas the carrier protein of facilitated diffusion does not need energy. So this is the basic difference. And second, in active transport, the substances are transported against the concentration or electrical or electrochemical gradient. In facilitated diffusion, the substances are transported along the concentration or electrical or electrochemical gradient. So, which are the carrier proteins of active transport? Carrier proteins involved in active transport are of two types. First is uniport and second is symport or antiport. So it can be asked in Viva that what is uniport. So uniport is a carrier protein that carries only one substance in a single direction and which is called the uniport. It is also known as uniport pump. And second is symport or antiport. So symport or antiport is a carrier protein that transports two substances at a time. Carrier protein that transports two different substances in the same direction is called the symport or symport pump. Carrier protein that transports two different substances in opposite direction is called the antiport or antiport pump. Now we'll look into mechanism of the active transport. When a substance to be transported across the cell membrane comes near the cell, it combines with the carrier protein of the cell membrane and forms substance protein complex. So this complex moves towards the inner surface of the cell membrane. Now the substance is released from the carrier proteins. The same carrier protein moves back to the outer surface of the cell membrane to transport other molecules of the substance. So, which substances are being transported by the active transport? The answer is substances which are transported actively are in ionic form and non-ionic form. Substances in ionic form are sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, chloride, and iodide. And substances in non-ionic forms are glucose, amino acids, and urea. Now we'll talk about the types of active transport. So active transport is of two types. First is primary active transport and second is secondary active transport. Primary active transport is the type of transport mechanism in which the energy is liberated directly from the breakdown of the ATP. By this method, the substances like sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, and chloride are transported across the cell membrane. Primary active transport of sodium and potassium, which is called the sodium-potassium pump. Primary active transport of sodium potassium or we can call it a sodium potassium pump. So sodium and potassium ions are transported across the cell membrane by the means of common carrier protein, which is called the sodium potassium pump. It is called the NAK ATPase pump. This pump transports sodium from inside to outside the cell and potassium from outside to inside the cell. So this pump is present in all the cells of the body. The sodium and potassium pump is responsible for the distribution of the sodium and potassium ions across the cell membrane and the development of resting membrane potential. Transport of calcium ions. Calcium is actively transported from inside to outside the cell by the calcium pump. Calcium pump is operated by the separate carrier protein. Energy is obtained from ATP by the catalytic activities of the ATPase. Calcium pump are also present in some organelles of the cell, such as sarcoplasmic reticulum in the muscles and the mitochondria of the cell. These pumps move calcium into the organelles. Transport of hydrogen ions. So hydrogen ion is actively transported across the membrane by the carrier protein, which is called the hydrogen pump. It also obtains energy from the ATP by the activity of ATPase. The hydrogen pumps that are present in two important organs have some functional significance. First is stomach. So hydrogen pump is in partial cells of the gastric glands are involved in the formation of hydrochloric acid. And if we are talking about the kidney, then hydrogen pumps in epithelial cells of the distal convoluted tubules and collecting ducts are involved in the secretion of hydrogen ions from the blood into urine. Then there is a secondary active transport. So secondary active transport is a transport of a substance with sodium ion by means of a common carrier protein. When sodium is transported by a carrier protein, another substance is also transported by the same protein simultaneously, either in the same direction or in the opposite direction. Thus, the transport of sodium is coupled with the transport of another substance. Secondary active transport is of two types. First is a co-transport and second is a counter-transport. Sodium co-transport. Sodium cotransport is a process in which, along with sodium, another substance is transported by a carrier protein, which is called the symport. Energy for movement of sodium is obtained by breakdown of the ATP, and the energy released by the movement of sodium is utilized for the movement of another substance. Substances carried by sodium cotransport are glucose, amino acids, chloride, iodine, iron, and urate. Carrier protein for sodium cotransport. Carrier protein of the sodium cotransport has two receptor sites on the outer surface. Among the two sites, one is for binding of sodium and another site is for binding of other substance. Sodium cotransport of glucose. One sodium ion and one glucose molecule from the ECF bind with the respective receptor sites of carrier protein of the cell membrane. Now, the carrier protein is activated and it causes the conformational changes in the carrier protein so that the sodium and glucose are released into the cell. So sodium cotransport of glucose occurs during the absorption of glucose from the intestine and reabsorption of glucose from the renal tubule. Sodium cotransport of amino acids. So carrier proteins for the transport of amino acids are different from the carrier proteins for the transport of glucose. For the transport of amino acids, there are 5 sets of carrier proteins in the cell membrane. Each one carries the different amino acids depending upon the molecule's weight, or which is called the molecular weight of the amino acids. Sodium cotransport of amino acids also occurs during the absorption of amino acids from the intestine and reabsorption from renal tubules. Sodium countertransport. Sodium countertransport is a process by which the substances are transported across the cell membrane is exchanged for sodium ions by the carrier protein called antipod. Various countertransport systems are sodium calcium countertransport. In this, sodium and calcium ions move in opposite directions with the help of carrier protein. This type of transport of sodium and calcium ion is present in all the cells. Second is sodium hydrogen countertransport. In this system, the hydrogen ions are exchanged for sodium ions, and this occurs in the renal tubule cells. The sodium ions move from tubular lumen into the tubular cells, and the hydrogen ions move from tubular cells into the lumen. Other countertransport systems, in that sodium magnesium countertransport, sodium potassium countertransport, calcium magnesium countertransport, calcium potassium countertransport, chloride bicarbonate countertransport, and the chloride sulfate countertransports are there. And apart from all this, there are some special types of active transport. In addition to primary and secondary active transport systems, there are some special categories of active transport which are generally called the vesicular transport, and they are of 3 types: endocytosis, exocytosis, and transcytosis. Endocytosis. So endocytosis is defined as a transport mechanism by which the macromolecules enter the cell. Macromolecules are the substances with larger molecules, cannot pass through the cell membrane either by active or by passive transport mechanism. Such substances are transported into the cell by the endocytosis. So endocytosis are of 3 types: pinocytosis, phagocytosis, and receptor mediated endocytosis. Pinocytosis. So pinocytosis is a process by which macromolecules like bacteria and antigens are taken into the cells. It is otherwise called the cell drinking. Let's see the mechanism of pinocytosis. So pinocytosis involves following events. First, macromolecules in the form of droplets bind to the outer surface of the cell membrane. Now the cell membrane evaginates around the droplets. Droplets are engulfed by the membrane. Engulfed droplets are converted into vesicles and vacuoles, which are called the endosomes. Then endosome travels into the interior of cell. Primary lysosome in the cytoplasm fuses with endosomes and forms secondary lysosome. Now hydrolytic enzymes present in the secondary lysosome are activated, resulting in the digestion and degradation of the endosomal contents. Second is phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is the process by which particles larger than the macromolecules are engulfed into the cells, and it is called the cell eating. Pinocytosis was called the cell drinking, where the phagocytosis is called the cell eating. It can be asked in exam, most probably in Viva, that describe what cell eating and what cell drinking is. So larger bacteria, larger antigens and other larger foreign bodies are taken inside the cell by means of phagocytosis. Only few cells in the body like neutrophils, monocytes and the tissue macrophages show phagocytosis. Among these cells, the macrophages are the largest phagocytic cells. Mechanism of the phagocytosis. When bacteria or foreign body enters the body, first the phagocytic cell sends a cytoplasmic extension, which is pseudopodium, around the bacteria or foreign body. Then these particles are engulfed and are converted into endosome-like vacuole. Vacuole is very large and it is usually called the phagosome. Phagosome travels into the interior of cell. Primary lysosome fuses with this phagosome and forms secondary lysosome. Hydrolytic enzymes present in the secondary lysosomes are activated, resulting in the digestion and degradation of the phagosomal contents. Third is the receptor-mediated endocytosis. Receptor-mediated endocytosis is a transport of macromolecules with the help of receptor protein. Surface of cell membrane has some peats which contain a receptor protein called the clathrin. Together with the receptor protein, each peat is called the receptor-coated peat. These receptor-coated peats are involved in the receptor-mediated endocytosis. How it works? The receptor-mediated endocytosis is induced by the substances like ligands. Ligand molecules approach the cell and bind to receptors in the coated peats and form the ligand-receptor complex. Now ligand-receptor complex gets aggregated in the coated peats. Then the peat is detached from the cell and cell membrane and becomes the coated vesicles. This coated vesicles forms the endosome. An endosome travels into the interior of the cell. Primary lysosome is the cytoplasm fuses with the endosome and forms secondary lysosome. Now the hydrolytic enzymes present in the secondary lysosome are activated, resulting in the release of ligands into the cytoplasm. So receptor may move to a new pit of the cell membrane. Receptor-mediated endocytosis play an important role in the transport of several types of macromolecules into the cells. First is hormone. Growth hormone, thyroid-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, prolactin, insulin, glucagon, calcitonin, and catecholamines. Lipids, cholesterol and low-density lipoproteins. Growth factors like nerve growth factor, epidermal growth factor, platelet-derived growth factor, and interferon. And toxin and bacteria like cholera toxin, diphtheria toxin, pseudomonas toxins, and ricin, etc. Viruses like Rose sarcoma virus, Semliki forced virus, vesicular stomatitis virus, and adenovirus. And transport proteins like transferrin and transcobalamin. And then there are antibodies, IgE, IgG, polymeric IgG, and maternal IgG. Exocytosis. So, exocytosis is a process by which the substances are expelled from the cell. In this process, the substances are extruded from cell without passing through the cell membrane. This is the reverse of endocytosis. How this mechanism works? So, exocytosis is involved in the release of the substances from cells. Secretory substances of the cell are stored in the form of secretory vesicles in the cytoplasm. When required, the vesicles approach the cell membrane and get fused with the cell membrane. Later, the contents of the vesicles are released out of the cell. Role of calcium in exotosin. Calcium ions play an important role during the release of some secretory substances such as neurotransmitters. The calcium ions enter the cell and cause exocytosis. However, the exact mechanism of exocytosis is not clear yet. Transcytosis. Transcytosis is a transport mechanism which an extracellular macromolecules enters through one side of the cell, migrates across the cytoplasm of the cell and exits through the other side. Mechanism. Cell encloses the extracellular substance by invagination of the cell membrane to form a vesicle. Vesicle then moves across the cell and thrown out through the opposite cell membrane by means of exotosin. Transcytosis involves the receptor-coated peats as in receptor-mediated endocytosis. Receptor protein coating the peats in the process is caveolin and not clathrin. So transcytosis is also called the vesicle trafficking or cytopempsis. Transcytosis plays an important role in the selectively transporting the substances between the two environments across the cells without any distinct change in the composition of these environments. Example of this type of transport is a human immunodeficiency virus, which is HIV, and this can be transported by this mechanism. Molecular motors. So molecular motors are the protein-based molecular machines that perform intracellular movements in the response to specific stimuli. And what can be the functions of molecular motors? Transport of synaptic vesicles containing neurotransmitters from the nerve cell body to synaptic terminal. Role in cell division by pulling the chromosomes. Transport of viruses and toxins to the interior of the cell for its own detriment. Types of molecular motors. Molecular motors are classified into the three superfamilies: kinesin, dynein, and myosin. Kinesin transports substances by moving over the microtubules. Each kinesin molecule has two heads and a tail portion. One of the heads hydrolyzes ATP to obtain energy. By utilizing their energy, the other head swings continuously, causing the movement of the whole kinesis molecule. End portion of the tail carries the cargo, which are the substances to be transported. Kinesin is responsible for anterograde transport substances towards the positive end of microtubule. Dynein. Dynein is almost similar to kinesin and transports substances by moving over the microtubules, but is responsible for the retrograde transport of substances towards the negative end of the microtubule. Myosin. Myosin transports substances by moving over the microfilaments. Myosins are classified into 18 types according to the amino acid sequence. However, myosin 2 and 5 are functionally significant. Myosin 2 is involved in muscle contraction, where myosin 5 is involved in the transport of vesicles. So, there is an applied physiology physiological abnormalities of sodium potassium pump. Abnormalities in the number or function of sodium potassium pump are associated with the several pathological condition, and that is why we have to understand and we have to know the sodium potassium pump and this transport. First is reduction in either the number of concentration of a sodium potassium pump in myocardium is associated with the cardiac failure. Excess reabsorption of sodium in renal tubule is associated with the hypertension. Channelopathies or ion channel diseases. Channelopathies or ion channel diseases are caused by mutations in genes that encode the ion channels. First is sodium channel diseases. Dysfunction of sodium channels leads to muscle spasm and Liddle syndrome, which is the dysfunction of sodium channels in the kidney, resulting in the increased osmotic pressure in the blood and hypertension. Second is a potassium channel diseases. So potassium channel dysfunctions causes disorders of the heart, inherited deafness and epileptic seizures in newborn. And third is a chloride channel diseases. Dysfunction of chloride channel results in the formation of renal stones and cystic fibrosis or fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a generalized disorder affecting the functions of many organs such as lungs, exocrine glands like pancreas, biliary system and immune system. So yes, it was all about the transport through cell membrane. So this can be asked in 10 marks question in our theory paper. So what you have to write is basic mechanism of transport, which you have to include in our passive and active transport mechanism. And passive transport, you have to mention the diffusion through lipid and protein layers, protein channels which are gated and ligand gated, voltage gated, mechanical gated. Types of diffusion you have to elaborate. Then you have to understand, or you have to write the factors affecting the rate of diffusion. At least you can mention the names. If you don't have time to write detail in that, at least you should have to write the heading. Or then you have to write down the types of passive transport, at least the definition, types of osmosis. Then you have to write down the active transport, types of that, mechanism. So basically you have to write all the definition which have been said here in this topic. Endocytosis, exocytosis, transcytosis. You can skip the mechanism of all this subtypes, right? And you should not have to write down the applied physiology or abnormalities of the sodium potassium pump. Okay, so again, it is important. Yes, it would be difficult to understand, but you have to reread it again and again, at least for 2-3 times. Then you have the idea. Okay, fine, this is what you have to understand. Okay, though it is not tough, but yes, it will take more of your time. So yeah, if you are having any query regarding this, you can ask me. Thank you.